Every airline has its secrets. We all know that. But some secrets aren't just buried in maintenance logs or whispered about in crew lounges. Some are hidden in plain sight. For Alex Carter, a guy who basically lived on airplanes, the darkest secret of Omni-Sky Air wasn't in some redacted report. It was printed in plain black ink on a flimsy boarding pass. The one that read, Seat 14B. A seat that, for all intents and purposes, shouldn't have even existed. A seat with a terrifying history, a history he was about to become the next chapter of. The noise of JFK Airport was just background music to Alex. The rolling suitcases, the garbled announcements. He was a consultant, a road warrior. Flying was like making coffee. But this trip was different. This wasn't a business meeting. This was a last-minute flight to Chicago. His father was in the hospital after a bad fall. His mind was a total mess of worry and flight times, which is probably why he almost missed the weird hesitation from the gate agent. He was ready to pay a fortune, but the agent, a young woman with exhausted eyes, found him a seat on Flight 710, leaving in under an hour. "It's all we have," she said, and her fingers seemed to freeze over the keyboard for just a second too long. She wouldn't look at him, staring at her screen like something nasty was on it. A middle seat, 14B. "My life is a middle seat," Alex mumbled back. "I'll take it." She printed the pass and slid it over. But as he walked away, he caught that same flicker in her eyes again. It wasn't pity. It was closer to apprehension. He chalked it up to his own anxiety. She was probably just tired of dealing with people all day. Boarding was a rush. As he shuffled down the narrow aisle of the Airbus, a 320, he scanned the rows. 11, 12, 13. He paused. It was strange to see a row 13. Most airlines skipped it. Omni-Sky wasn't superstitious, apparently. Or maybe they had other numbers to be scared of. He found row 14. In the window seat, 14, a guy with a thick neck was already glued to his tablet. The aisle seat, 14C, was empty. And then there was his, 14B. And the first thing that hit him was the cold. This wasn't the usual airplane chill from the vents. This was a deep, damp cold that seemed to radiate right out of the seat cushion itself. He brushed his hand over the seat back, and the chill latched onto his skin. As he settled in, a flight attendant came by, her smile bright, but feeling a little forced. Her name tag said, Sarah. As her eyes met his, that professional smile flickered, just for a second. But it was there, the same look the gate agent had. A flash of, what was that? Apprehension? Pity? She quickly looked away and busied herself with the overhead bin, never making eye contact with him again. Alex tried to ignore it. He was exhausted, worried about his dad. He was seeing things. He buckled his seatbelt. The click loud in the strangely quiet row. The man by the window hadn't even looked at him. The aisle seat was still empty. And as the cabin door sealed shut, Alex realized with a sinking feeling that it was going to stay empty. The flight wasn't even full. But the agent had told him 14B was all they had. He leaned his head back. The fabric felt weird, stiff, and out of the corner of his eye, he saw it. A faint, dark stain on the headrest. Looked like someone had tried to scrub something out, but didn't quite get it all. The cold from the seat seemed to get stronger. A pocket of dead winter in the warm cabin. He closed his eyes as the plane started to move, just wanting to get to Chicago. He had no clue that for whatever was in seat 14B, the trip was just getting started. The plane climbed smoothly into the black sky. The cabin lights dimmed. Alex, a guy who could usually pass out on command, was wide awake. The cold from the seat wasn't just cold anymore. It felt aware. He tried to zone out, popping in his noise-canceling headphones. He pulled up the in-flight entertainment screen, but the 141-4B was a mess. It kept flickering, blurring into static. He gave up. Music it is. And that's when he heard it. A whisper so quiet he almost missed it. It was a thin, reedy hiss that coiled through his music, a sound that didn't belong. He yanked his headphones off. Just the normal drone of the plane. He put them back on, and there it was again. A thin, reedy voice that seemed to curl right through the music. Mine. The word dragged out, like a warped tape. A totally different kind of chill went down his spine now. He glanced at the guy in 1-4 steel, lost in his tablet, oblivious. Alex hit the call button. The flight attendant, Sarah, showed up. Her smile was still there. Her eyes were still wary. "Is everything all right, sir?" she asked, her voice a little too loud. "My screen is glitching out," Alex said, starting with the normal problem first. "And did you just hear a whisper?" Sarah's eyes shot down to his seat, number 14B, and then back up to his face. That wary look was back, stronger this time. "I can try resetting your screen from the galley, sir," she said. "As for the noise, it's probably just the aircraft. They make all sorts of strange sounds." It was the smoothest, most rehearsed brush-off he'd ever heard. She was gone before he could say another word. He knew she was lying. Then the scratching started, from under his seat. A sharp, frantic sound, like nails on metal. Scrape, 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 pause, scrape. It was deliberate. He froze. What was that? He leaned down, squinting into the dark, but saw nothing. He hit the call button again. This time, an older purser arrived. Name tag, Eleanor. She had a stern, no-nonsense face. "Yes?" "There's a scratching sound," Alex said, his voice low. "Under my seat. It's loud." Eleanor didn't even look down. She looked at him, then at the seat number, and a look of pure exhaustion washed over her. "Sir," she said, her voice dropping, taking on this hard, final edge. "I assure you, our aircraft are clean. There is nothing under your seat. You are in seat 14B. Sometimes that seat makes noises. The best thing you can do is put on your headphones and try to ignore them." She didn't wait for a reply, just turned and walked away. "You are in seat 14B. She said it like it was a diagnosis. He felt a sudden ice-cold pressure on his forearm, like a hand had just rested there. He flinched, yanking his arm away. He looked up toward the front galley. He could just see Sarah and Eleanor talking, their heads close. They kept glancing back at him. Sarah looked scared. Eleanor just looked grim. They knew. They knew everything. And they weren't just ignoring him. They were managing him. Can you imagine? That feeling of being singled out, of being watched, and the very people who are supposed to keep you safe are in on it. If you're getting pulled into this story, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. All right, let's get back to the flight, because things are about to get so much worse. The next hour was a slow dive into a nightmare. The call button light above him started to flicker. On, off, on, off. A slow, taunting pulse. And with every flash of light, a whisper right in his ear. Scared, alone, falling. He squeezed his eyes shut, but that didn't help. The images were on the inside now. Flashes of a woman's face, mouth open in a silent scream, her eyes wider than you can imagine. Then his seatbelt started to tighten, slowly, on its own. He gasped, his fingers fumbling with the metal buckle, finally managing to pop it open. The pressure was gone. That was it. He had to get out of the seat. He stumbled into the aisle and just started walking toward the back of the plane. He didn't know where he was going. He just had to move. A flight attendant stopped him. "Sir, you need to go back to your seat. We're expecting turbulence." "Something is wrong with that seat," Alex hissed. "Something is in that seat." The attendant's professional mask cracked. "Please, sir, just go back. It'll be over soon." "What will be over?" Alex demanded, his voice getting louder. "What is in 14B?" Heads were turning. Eleanor, the purser, came marching down the aisle, her face like a storm cloud. "What's the problem here?" she commanded. "I'm not unwell. I'm terrified." Alex shot back, pointing down the aisle. "That seat is haunted, and you all know it." The word haunted just hung there in the cabin air. A few people snickered. The guy from 14A was just staring at him with annoyance. Eleanor grabbed his arm, and her grip was like iron. "Come with me," she hissed, her voice low and dangerous. "Now, before you start a panic." She pulled him into the small front galley and yanked the curtain shut. "You need to stop," she said, her face inches from his. "Then tell me what's happening," Alex pleaded. "What is in that seat?" Eleanor stared at him, and he could see a war going on behind her eyes. Then something broke. The anger washed away, and all that was left was this bottomless exhaustion. "Evelyn," she whispered. Her name was Evelyn. 10 years ago. This plane. She had a massive heart attack during some freak turbulence. It was bad. She died right there, in that seat, terrified and alone. Alex felt his blood run cold. A ghost? Eleanor let out a bitter little laugh. "We don't know what it is. An echo? A scar on the plane? All we know is that it's tied to that seat. After she died, things started happening. Lights flickering, equipment failing, always around 14B. So take the plane out of service." "And say what?" Eleanor snapped. "Tell the F all we think a ghost is flying, co-pilot? They'd ground the whole crew for psych evals. The airline loses $100 million plane. You know what happens when we leave the seat empty? It gets worse. It spreads. Call buttons going off everywhere. Luggage flying out of the overheads. The galley ovens turned on by themselves once. Started a fire, it's like. If it doesn't have one person to focus on, it gets hungry." The word just hung there. Hungry. "So you feed it?" Alex whispered as the awful truth clicked into place. Eleanor wouldn't look at him. "The presence. It focuses on whoever's in the seat. It feeds on their fear. As long as someone is there, it stays put. It stays in 14B. The company knows. They have a name for it. Atmospheric Containment Protocol. It's their sick corporate way of saying human sacrifice." Alex stared at her. The last-minute ticket. The worried looks. The empty seat next to him so no one could back up his story. It was all a procedure. He wasn't a passenger. He was a lightning rod. An offering. People who are stressed, he breathed. Distracted. Flying alone. That's who you pick, isn't it? Tears welled up in Eleanor's eyes. "We don't have a choice. It's our job. We tell ourselves it's better for one person to be terrified than for something to happen that could bring the whole plane down." "Now, please," she begged. "Go back to your seat. Don't fight it. Fighting only makes it stronger. Just endure it. We're landing in Chicago soon." He stumbled back out into the cabin, a ghost himself now. He walked back down the aisle, his steps heavy, back toward the cold, waiting darkness of seat 14B. Walking back to that seat was the hardest thing Alex had ever had to do. The cold coming off it felt wrong, like it was alive. The air itself felt thick, vibrating with this silent, hateful energy. He didn't sit down right away. He just stood there, gripping the headrest of 14C, staring at his prison. He could feel her. Evelyn. Her leftover terror was a force in the air. Eleanor's words came back to him. "Don't fight it. It only makes it stronger." He took a breath, not of courage, of resignation. He wasn't going to give it the fight it wanted. He was going to starve it. He sank into the seat, letting the icy cold wash over him without flinching. He felt the phantom pressure on his arm and ignored it. He closed his eyes and pictured his father, not in a hospital bed, but years ago, laughing. He focused on the sound of that laugh, the feeling of a proud hand on his shoulder. He built a wall around his mind made of nothing but love and memory. The presence pushed back. The whispers started again, angrier now. Look at me. You will fall. Fear me. A freezing breath washed over his neck. The seatbelt jiggled. The TV screen flashed on, showing the screaming woman's face. Alex didn't open his eyes. He held on to the image of his father. He felt the fear, a hard knot in his gut, but he refused to feed it. He just kept focusing on his dad. For what felt like a lifetime, this silent battle raged inside his head. Then, just when he thought he couldn't take another second, the plane banked. The captain's voice came over the speaker, calm and normal. Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin for arrival. A single ray of dawn sun cut through a window and hit the armrest of his seat. When the light touched, the cold seemed to shrink away. The whispers faded. The plane was coming back to Earth, back to the world of the living, and the thing in 14B was losing its power. The landing was jarringly normal. The screech of the tires, the roar of the engines. The spell was broken. Alex sat there, completely drained, until he was the last passenger on the plane. He walked towards the exit, his legs feeling like wood. Eleanor and Sarah were waiting for him by the door. There was no apology on their faces, just this deep, shared exhaustion, and maybe a little gratitude. He was the offering that had worked. He had survived. As he stepped onto the jet bridge, he looked back one last time. The cabin was empty, clean. Seat 14B looked like any other seat, but he knew the stain was still there. The cold was just waiting. He shared one last look with Eleanor. No words. They didn't need any. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Another man with a secret he could never tell. A man who knew that a part of him was still up there, at 30,000 feet, trapped in the cold, dark silence of that haunted airplane seat. And the most terrifying question of all just hung there in the air behind him. Who gets 14B on the flight back? So what do you think? Could a company really hide a secret this dark just to keep a plane flying? I want to know what you think in the comments. And if you have a story that you think needs to be told, the link to our submission page is in the description. Turn on those notifications, because you don't want to miss where we're going next. Until then, fly safe.